Hey, so I don't go here. I don't make videos. I don't post to YouTube. This is the 99% chance that this is going to be the one and only video on this channel. So earlier this week, penguinz0 slash Moist Critical slash Charlie, whatever you call him, he uploaded a video to his channel that I saw called Ranting about Horror. And there's, I have notes. So disclaimer, I love Charlie. I watch his videos. This is in no ways a call out or even a critique. Obviously what he said in that video is his opinion, and it's an opinion. It's valid. It's about movies. Like, who cares? But like, the reason that I decided to, put out my thoughts into the void is just, this isn't the first time that I have seen and heard people have this opinion about the horror genre. Every time I look up a horror movie that I like on Rotten Tomatoes or whatever, just like Google it, it's always rated super low, even if I think it's a great movie. I honestly just think that horror is like the black sheep child of the film critic family for whatever reason. And I just don't agree. What I would like to do with this is just for Charlie and anyone else who likes movies but, is reluctant to horror, I guess. I just would like to put you on to some good films. So about me, I'm not an expert by any means. I took a few classes on like horror movies and art in college, but really, like, at the end of the day, I'm just a guy who likes horror movies. And not even just like exclusively horror movies either. Like, if you like took, I guess, like my top 50 movies of all time, the majority of them would probably be horror. But if you go to like my top 4, none of them are. And I mean, that's all just to say that, this is not some super hyper researched video by someone who is like dedicated their life to this. This is just more to have a conversation. Okay, are we good in that? Cool.
But 99% of horror movies that come out are just not good. And I've seen like 99% of horror movies.
One of the first things that Charlie says in this video is that he has watched a lot more horror movies than the layperson, and he has come to find that 99% of horror movies are crap. And, which, I believe him. I mean, like, at least I believe that 99% of the horror movies that he's watched are crap. So I'm not gonna lie, I do think that horror can be a pretty oversaturated genre nowadays, like on streaming with all of the options that we have. And I think that the reason that that is I think like a lot of people, a lot of filmmakers who are venturing into horror, they misunderstand the genre to be one where the sole purpose is to scare the viewer. And they might think that's easy, like it would be easier to elicit a fear response than any other emotion. It's easier to, just really startle someone with a jump scare than it would be to make a well-crafted joke or develop and portray a relationship that is believable and relatable to the viewer. So it makes sense to me that if you, like Charlie, are actively seeking out so bad it's good movies in the horror genre, then it's not going to be that hard. And that's not to say that there's not mindless crap in every other genre. Like, I mean, if you're gonna lump every movie in one particular genre and look at all of them together, the majority is gonna be garbage. Making movies is hard, and I'm sure making good movies is a lot harder than that. But there are just so many good horror movies that I have seen and that I haven't seen yet that I think are far more relevant in this conversation about the horror genre, that I think it would be sad to ignore them. So earlier I said that I think a lot of filmmakers misunderstand the purpose of the horror genre and think that the whole point is to make viewers scared or uncomfortable. And I mean, obviously, yeah, like that's a part of it, like it's in the name. But to me, as someone who has watched a lot of horror movies and played a lot of horror games and read a lot of horror literature, I've said horror so many times so far. Everyone always says that when I say that, it sounds like I'm saying horror. That's the real problem with this genre. Actually, yeah, change the name so I can stop embarrassing myself. But yeah, to me, and probably to most people who take an interest in this, the driving force behind horror as a genre is to take apart and examine what, as humans, scares us and what that says. So let me make an example with the movie that I think that Charlie mentioned.
Because there was one of those, like Autopsy of Jane Doe, the possessing of Lily Manchester, the possession of Grim Cheeseburger. Like, I've seen all of those, and they sucked ass. So if it was during that wave, then yeah, I probably saw it and didn't like it.
He didn't actually mention it by name, but I am sure that this is one of the movies that he was referring to with that. The Exorcism of Emily Rose. So granted, this is not in any ways like my favorite movie ever, but I do think that it has a lot more merit than people who talk about it see at first. So this is a movie that is based on the true story of Anneliese Michel. I hope that I'm pronouncing that right. She was thought by her German Catholic community to be possessed, and she underwent 67 exorcism rituals until she died of malnutrition and dehydration, whether that was from the exorcisms themselves or because she was denied proper mental health medical care. This movie is actually mostly a courtroom drama. The prosecution is arguing that Emily, who is the, Annalise stand-in, would have lived if she were provided proper mental health support from a psychiatrist. And the defense is actually arguing that what happened to Emily during the exorcism might have some unexplainable supernatural reasoning, basically arguing that demons are real. The movie actually does make you question it at a lot of points, even though it's based on a real event that actually happened. Sometimes you watch it and you're thinking, maybe it was demons. I don't know. There's a lot of unexplainable shit that's happening to her. And reading like a lot of reviews online, I think a lot of people came out of this movie thinking that the point was, wouldn't it be so spooky if demons and possessions might be real, My interpretation is that it is really scary how little we know about the forces of the universe. There are just so many things that just seem completely unexplainable, so much so that even like in a court of law, you're doubting the laws of science. There's just so many things that could happen to us that we could never predict or truly know why they happened. And because we don't understand those things, we can't control them or when they happen or if they happen, including terrible things like the torture of an innocent girl who never did anything to anyone. And I know this movie had a lot of mixed reactions, and honestly, at the end of the day, I just hope that Anneliese Michel's loved ones at least found it respectful, at least the loved ones who were good to her. So now let me talk about my favorite horror movie ever, which is 28 Days Later. If you haven't seen this movie, I don't know what you're doing. It's been 20 years. Zombies have always been my favorite horror creature. I think that they can be so scary. Anything to do with body horror, including zombies, at the core of it, you or whoever the person being affected is just in the most basic primal way, losing their humanity, and again, just can't control it. Like, zombies are just the most literal depiction of what would happen if you lost everything that made you human, enough so that your entire life purpose would become destroying what you once were and everyone you've ever known and loved. There's a great line in the original Dawn of the Dead movie. It's someone on the news, and he says that zombies cannot be classified as cannibals because cannibals are humans, and zombies are just something entirely different. I don't know, that's just so existentially scary, like the concept of that. And 28 Days Later in particular, I think is just so well conceptualized and just uniquely and creatively shot. The soundtrack is amazing and everyone in it gives a great performance. And not only does it show how scary zombies can be, but also just how terrible humans can be to each other in dire survival situations and how scary that can be. And that's not new. That is something that is extremely prevalent in all of zombie media. And it's always something that I love to watch. This movie just goes places that really bring that point home. Beyond what is terrifying about the whole concept of a zombie apocalypse, The biggest theme in this movie is hope. Even if the worst possible thing in the world happened to us, not everything is going to go to shit. There's hope not just that things are going to be okay again, and that even if they won't, there is still love and still people that we care about and things that we as humans have made significant enough that the chance to have even just a sliver of that is enough justification to stay alive in a literal apocalypse. I don't know, that's just profound to me, you know? And I think with a lot of horror movies, and to me, most of them that I've watched, and all of the good ones, if you just take the time to think about like the implications of what is happening in that and why you might find it scary, then I think that you can appreciate the genre and realize that there is a place and a purpose for it. Those are just two movies. I would say, you know, opposite to Charlie, honestly, most of the horror movies that I have watched are really, really good. So I'm just going to share some recommendations with you. I said that I love zombie movies. Obviously, my favorite is 28 Days Later. I also mentioned the original Dawn of the Dead, which is great. The remake is awesome too, but the original is just always going to be kind of just the quintessential movie of that era and that time and that genre for me. Shaun of the Dead, which is hilarious and probably just the funniest horror comedy ever. Just delightful. Train to Busan, obviously, just really sad and touching and great. And then One Cut of the Dead, which I believe came out in 2017 and is just amazing and hilarious. If you like zombies at all or want to give it a chance, you do have to watch that movie. And please watch it all the way to the end. You'll see what I'm talking about. Charlie talked a little bit about modern horror in his video, and I don't really know what we as a society would classify as modern horror. I don't really know where the cutoff is, but since he mentioned Hereditary, and that to me is very new, I'm just gonna put the cutoff at 2010, and we'll go with that. By those terms, my favorite modern horror movie would probably have to be the 2018 remake of Suspiria. I don't know what the public would have to say about that. Anything that Jordan Peele has directed, Mandy, which stars Nicolas Cage, beautiful, intense movie. I wouldn't say it's scary, but it's definitely just like a really new and innovative and like visually captivating contribution to this genre. House LLC, I see that mentioned on Reddit all the time as being like the scariest movie ever. I did think it was scary. I had a good time watching it. I enjoy found footage horror films. The acting seemed pretty realistic compared to maybe some others that Charlie has seen. St. Maud, which is an A24 film. It's just a really well done slow burn. Another one you really just have to watch straight to the end. And then the Autopsy of Jane Doe, which I know Charlie said he may or may not have seen. I will watch anything with Brian Cox in it. If he hasn't, I do think that he should check it out. I know a lot of people really like that movie. Charlie also talked about just the crimes against humanity of Blumhouse. And I'm not I'm not gonna say he's wrong, but there are a few movies from that I actually do think have a lot of merit that I really like. The first and second Creep movie are honestly just some of my favorite new horror ever. I can really appreciate when a movie is super low budget and can do things with one camera and with a limited set, a limited location, and just make a really interesting story. And in the second, you think it's just going to be a rehashing of the first one, but it's not. It's better, honestly. And then It Follows, which I saw a lot of people in the comments of that video saying to watch It Follows. So like even people who I believe like misinterpreted the message of that film and thought that it was just like a straight like parallel allegory to STDs, even they loved it. So that should just attest to like how good of a movie that is. And if that is what you think about that movie, obviously like you're completely entitled to that. There's no issue with that. But I do think that you should read what the people who made this movie said about it. Because I don't really think you should walk away from that movie just thinking it's a sex negative story. I think it has a lot more to say than that. Classic horror movies that if you have any interest in the genre, I would say are must watches. Night of the Living Dead, The Omen, The Exorcist, the first Halloween movie, The Thing, which a lot of horror fans would probably say is the best horror movie ever, The Fly, Hellraiser, Evil Dead 2, and then the sequel, Army of Darkness, Jacob's Ladder, Silence of the Lambs, the original Scream, and the original Saw, which I will defend until I die. And then some movies that I really think that Charlie or anyone else who like does the whole so bad it's good thing would like, Chopping Mall and Sleepaway Camp. And I'm not saying that these movies are bad by any means. I think that they are really, really good movies, especially Sleepaway Camp is like in my top 10. It has to be. They're not bad at all. Like they shouldn't work, but somehow these productions have just stumbled into this amazing lightning in a bottle just campiness. It is a spectacle to behold. And then I'll also put Willard and the Willard remake in this category, especially the remake. Just so good. So good. And then just some of my other favorite horror movies. The original Pulse, it is a Japanese film. It is another slow burn. I know it might be a little bit slow for a lot of people. It is such like a harrowing depiction of loneliness and isolation and fear of death and being alone in death. And I can't say anything else about it without making this video like an hour long. Candyman, amazing movie, important movie. The first time I watched it, I was just really surprised that it was made in the time that it was. I would honestly add it to the classic / must-watch list. I think it's that significant. And then Videodrome. I am a Cronenberg stan till I die, and I know that his movies are definitely not everyone else's cup of tea. Just like a quick spoiler for this movie, dude puts a gun in his chest vagina. It's a fun time. I like it. And then just while I'm here, I'm also gonna plug my really tiny webcomic. Yeah, I have a horror webcomic. It's called Strange Chase. It's about cannibals. I just finished it earlier this month. I'm gonna leave a description for that as well as just a list of all the movies that I mentioned in this video. And then I'll throw in some charities. This world is a sad, dark place. So yeah, I've said my piece. I know Charlie's not going to watch this, but if you're watching this, somehow stumbled upon it, and you agree with him and think that 99% of horror movies are garbage, I do hope you just take the time to maybe take a look at one or two of the movies that I suggested, and just keep an open mind, and just know a bit more about the genre and why there are so many of us that love it. If you made it to the end of this video, cool.